This is Arise America.
Now, amidst the worst US crime wave in decades, Democrats and Republicans are still at odds over the cause of unchecked violence in cities nationwide and what to do about it. New York and a lot of other cities around the United States have been experiencing a pretty significant increase in shootings and homicides, a trend that started in the spring of 2020, though the year of 2021 was the worst year of gun violence in the country in nearly 30 years. Partisan gridlock and doomed effective reforms and legislation action on gun control, which are necessary for preventing mass shootings and saving lives. Well, to discuss this issue further, we are joined live by Sonya Yee Coleman, an organiser at Stop Handgun Violence, a non-profit organisation committed to the prevention of gun violence through effective law enforcement and common sense gun laws. Sonya, thank you so much indeed for joining us this evening. This week alone we've seen a number of shootings, including the mass shooting in Brooklyn as well. There was a child shot in California. Last week, 6 people were shot in Sacramento. Why are we seeing this rise in gun crime?
Well, essentially, the access to firearms in our country is a problem. And as states have varying laws, it's not consistent, and the federal government hasn't provided a full breadth of laws that everyone can follow. So access to guns and how they are purchased vary and can be easily purchased in states that have really weak gun laws.
Now, earlier this week, I think it was a Tuesday, President Biden revealed plans on how to deal with what they call the so-called ghost guns. Obviously, the Biden administration has said many times this year, never mind last year, enough is enough. But is tackling ghost guns the way forward? Clearly there needs to be some more reform.
Absolutely. Gun violence is a complex problem, epidemic in our country. So ghost guns is one step. It basically requires the serialization of those do-it-yourself kits, making firearms mostly at home, purchased online, and it helps to track those guns that are used in crimes and have accountability. We have a slew of gun reform that should be passed that has been definitely deadlocked in Congress. Most importantly, background checks for all gun sales, meaning both at the dealer and also private sales. So we applaud President Biden for doing whatever he can at executive actions when the Congress cannot.
There is this term about sensible reform. Now, last week I was in Florida, and I went into a restaurant, and there was a man there with his gun in his holster, and being British, I'm not used to seeing that, and he looked at me, and we were sort of having a sort of general chat about guns, and he was saying, like, for example, your organisation is not looking at a ban on handguns, more on reform to issue sensible gun laws. And he was saying, as a sensible gun owner, he believes that there does need to be reform, that does need to be changes. But he said it's so difficult in order to, he was saying that background checks just isn't enough, because he believes that somehow the system is so wide, is so vast, that there will end up being loopholes. But even he was saying that, that it is impossible in his mind, even though he wants to see more sensible laws, he believes it's impossible. Do you meet many people in your work that have a similar feeling?
I don't think it's impossible. I think there's always hope that we can do better, and we can do better. I think our government also has problems with the industry, lobbyists like the NRA, putting money into Congress and influencing and dictating gun laws in our country. So that's a big part too. So yeah, it's complicated. It's not just gun reform laws. There are other things that are causing why we're in the state that we are in, by not listening to like over 90% of the people of the country want gun reform law, but like the small segment, an industry, the gun industry, not wanting it, and that's all obviously driven by profits.
What would you say to those people that believe that guns should be completely outlawed? I mean, obviously it's part of the Constitution, a right to arms, but to people that say, look, enough's enough, we're fed up of seeing this mass violence, just ban them. What do you say to them?
Well, our organization, we don't say we're not against the Second Amendment. I think that, our history around that is obviously very deep rooted, and people feel very close to that. And there are people who recreational and hunting, and there are responsible gun owners, and we support those responsible gun owners. However, the epidemic of gun violence is getting to a point where there should be a ban on some dangerous firearms, such as in Massachusetts, we do ban assault rifles, which I know a lot of pro-gun owners don't like the term of assault rifles, but they are the AR-15s, high-capacity magazines, and they're not allowed to be sold and purchased in Massachusetts. So it can be done.
Do you think it would help if there was federal gun laws, so basically every state is the same, because it can get confusing if you as you see, you can't buy a certain weapon in Massachusetts, but you can just drive across the state line and purchase one in a neighbouring state. I mean, would it make more sense for a federal policy?
Absolutely, and that's why a lot of our neighboring states. So our state lines are not, we don't stop people at the state line and say, like, do you have firearms? We have open borders. But, to the north of us, they don't have comprehensive background checks. You can go to New Hampshire, which is just, from Boston is only an hour away, and buy a gun at a yard sale, so because it's a private sale. And a lot of those guns that are recovered and crime guns by the police are trafficked from the states to the north, New Hampshire and Maine, and also the South Carolina, Tennessee and Florida. So illegal guns are coming into our state because of other states who don't have strong gun laws and selling them to anyone.
I mean, can you see a time when politicians from all sides of the House, because I remember when President Obama was in power, he ended up saying to the politicians, I can't do any more, it's up to you. If you want to see scenes, like the mass shooting in Las Vegas, you're going to have to do something. And I mean, the problem is that with social media now and sound bites, and they're worried about donors and there's certain clip being taken out of context and the poll ratings. Is there a time where all of that can be forgotten and ignored for a moment, and they just have a sensible dialogue on reform and none of this point scoring from either side?
You would think so, for the benefit and the health and the well-being of our citizens. You would hope that politicians would rise up to the challenge and do that. We're not seeing that, and unfortunately, I don't know when that will change. And it's all comes down to elections, and for the people to vote people who are going to do the right thing and pass sensible gun laws.
Well, unfortunately, we'll have to leave it there, but thank you so much indeed for taking the time out and to discuss the issue with us.
This is Arise America.